Good afternoon, and welcome to this briefing on the Iraq crisis. Maliki is the root of all evil that's taken place in Iraq. All of his decisions have been those that have promoted himself rather than the best interest of the country, and certainly the best interest of the different peoples that live in Iraq. He spent the last 5 years turning Iraq into his own personal fiefdom, where he is in total control. He purged the army that was generally effective of its effective commanders and replaced them with his buddies that were no more qualified to be in charge of the military than anyone else. He arrested and sentenced to death the vice president because of the reason he was a Sunni. Maliki has got to go. He's not good for anybody. He's not good for the world. He's not good for the Iraqi people. He's not good for anyone except himself. If there is to be any stabilization in Iraq, the first order of business is for the Iraqis to remove him and the world community to support someone else being in charge of the people of Iraq. Meanwhile, there's a group of folks in Iraq, those folks, the Iranian dissidents, Iranian freedom fighters, who have suffered at the hands of the Maliki regime. Many of them have been murdered. Not one person has been held accountable for the murders of the folks in Camp Liberty and before that in Camp Ashraf. Interesting to note. It seems as though it's not just the Iraqi government, but the mullahs in Iran and the Iranian government are complicit in doing everything they can to destabilize and go after the folks that are in Camp Liberty and Camp Ashraf before. What is Camp Liberty like? You probably have not been there. I haven't been there. When I was in Iraq not too long ago, I wanted to go visit Camp Ashraf, and Maliki told me in no uncertain terms he would not let members of Congress see what was taking place in Camp Ashraf. My question was, what do you have to hide from the world about how these people that you are responsible for, along with the world community, including the United States, for their safety, what do you have to hide? Of course, he did not answer that question, and he was quite indignant about the thought that the outside world would want to look into how the people in Camp Ashraf, now Camp Liberty, are being treated. Well, you know, in a prison, being a former judge, in prison you can jail, you can see your lawyer, you can communicate with the outside world. You have certain really rights or privileges. The people in Camp Liberty, it's, as Rudy Giuliani said, it's worse than prison. It's more like a concentration camp because of the way that they are treated. Those are a group of individuals that are opposed to the current regime in Iran. The current folks in Iran do not want these people to be free. I don't think they want them to exist because they are a threat to the current regime. Long term, the Iranian regime for world stability has to be changed by the Iranians. Thank you very much.
As Chairman of the Intelligence, I just want to talk about Iran's meddling for a second. I'm going to let you talk about the crisis itself, what it means in the region, and I think these have serious consequences. As a matter of fact, the most serious, and I would argue today, maybe the serious threat to a homeland-style strike, given ISIS and its stated intention to commit both Western and U.S.-based terrorist attacks. You know, the United States Department of Defense estimates as many as 600 U.S. troops have died as a result of Iran's meddling in Iraq during the Iraq conflict. If you look at the fact that Iran was willing, using our southern border, by the way, to infiltrate people into the United States, to kill the Saudi ambassador just a few short years ago in Washington, D.C., If you look at the fact, according to public reports, Iran using cyber attacks probing U.S. financial institutions, in the year 2012, some estimates as high as 400 different attempts to penetrate our U.S. financial institutions for disruption. And then you look at that catalyst event, I think, in Iraq, one of many, but that catalyst event where the United States official position was, we're leaving, we're out, this is hard, we're done. And if you track from that time all of the series of events, Maliki even being more emboldened to embrace Iran and seek support from Iran than he did have a unity government. If you think of the severity of where we're going in the decisions that we have to make in the next few months, I can't think of a more important issue to deal with than this. And you can't separate Iraq and Syria alone. We have to make certainly foreign policy decisions in Syria that will impact the outcome in Iraq. We have to make decisions between trying to find that ceasefire between Gaza and Israel that will impact what happens in Syria and Iraq. And all of those roads, if you look at all of those roads, all of the illicit support, all of the at least cash, training, weaponry that's leading to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Muslims across the Middle East, those roads lead through Tehran. And so I think we're going to need to use all of that soft power of the United States to start containing Iran's activities in the region, to start trying to bring and force about a unity government in Iraq. Now it's just a matter of the right policy at the right time, pushing in on all the trouble areas, including Tehran. So I look again forward to your discussion today. I know again that we're all in this for the same reason. If we can find peace and stability in the Middle East, the world wins, certainly the Middle East wins, and U.S. national security interests win. This is something that we should be able to pull together and pull off if we all agree on the same set of data points and where the problems are. And hopefully today is a good start to do that. Thank you very, very much. Godspeed.
Well, listen, I really appreciate the invitation to be here, and I'm surprised by the turnout, frankly. That's good. That's encouraging. You know, I think the crisis in Iraq poses major challenges for U.S. policymakers. The first is what to do about ISIS. You know, ISIS is the new face of al-Qaeda and the much larger radical Islamic movement. The U.S. challenge here is that we have never had a comprehensive strategy to defeat radical Islam. Doesn't exist. We don't even have a military strategy. The administration has made a correct decision to aid the Free Syrian Army. The problem with it is it's feeble in terms of what they're providing. They're going to train somewhere in the neighborhood of less than 3,000. And they're providing some weapons, but not nearly the amount of weapons that are needed. 2 years ago, Secretary Clinton, Secretary Panetta, and Director Petraeus made a recommendation to the administration in the summer of 2012 to do exactly what we're describing now. That was 2 years ago. And the President said no. We would be in a much better position today if he had said yes with the proper amount of support. You know, the key policy decisions in 2009 to get disengaged from Iraq politically and to no longer help shape Iraq's political future was disastrous. And it began right in January of 2009 with the arrival of a new ambassador. Particularly in light of our previous success in post-conflict in Germany, Japan, Italy, Korea, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and the Philippines. All of those were post-conflict success stories where our major focus was the growth and development of the country politically and economically. And we pulled away from that in 2009. And then 2011, we pulled away from Iraq militarily. Both of those decisions were disastrous for Iraq, as we are painfully aware of. What can we do about that? I think diplomatically, Secretary Kerry should work with countries in the region that have close relationships with the Sunni politicians in Iraq and the tribal leaders. Those are specifically Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Qatar, to move them away from ISIS and to move them back toward a new political process in Iraq. Maliki obviously has to go, as everybody has said who's come up to this microphone, and a new government has to be formed. But it's not going to happen unless we assist in that process. Politically, I would dispatch Ambassador Crocker and General Petraeus to Iraq. They have been very successful there. They have many relationships that are meaningful. They're highly respected. And I think they would be able to help move that political process towards a unity government that would be inclusive of the Kurds, the Sunnis, and the Shias, and then begin the process of reconciling the Sunni tribes. The last issue is, should we work with Iran, given the fact, interestingly, we have a common enemy in ISIS, and help and work with Iran to defeat ISIS? Absolutely not. Iran is the United States' strategic adversary in the region. Iran desires regional hegemony, declared the United States in 1980 as their #1 strategic enemy in the world. Additionally, in Iraq, it is the Quds Force in two separate bases that trained the Iraq Shia militia, who, using advanced technology and IEDs that they provided, began a systematic campaign to use that technology exclusively against American troops. General Lloyd Austin, who's now the CENTCOM commander, estimates that out of the 4,400 American troops that were killed in Iraq, he thinks that close to 2,000 of them were done at the hands of the Iranians. Most other analysts would come down in that number, but nobody's below 1,300 on Americans killed at the hands of Iranian proxies. So can you imagine that after that I just described to you, if we attempted to associate ourselves with Iran because of a near-term common interest, that would be a moral outrage as far as I'm concerned. And it absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. What we should be doing is assisting Iraq in the manner that I described. What are the Iranians doing in Iraq? Well, they've got a headquarters at the Rashid Airport, which is southeast of Baghdad. From there, they provide advisors and command and control of what they have in Iraq. They're providing, the Quds Force has organized the Shia militia and they help to facilitate their movement to and their organization with 5 Iraqi divisions. That's important, what they're doing. And Maliki has brought them in there for obvious reasons, because Maliki is the Iranian stooge. Thank you.